Do you ever wonder where your last name comes from? I'm Clara Benitez Cortez for Hispanic Heritage Month, and I took a look at the centuries-old origins of Latino last names.
It's Gonzalez.
When I was single, Maya.
Diaz? If you live in the Southwest, you're probably familiar with these last names.
Guzman.
Torres.
It became Bonavides.
Or it's probably your last name.
Do you know where your last name comes from?
No.
Last names, also known as surnames, date back to the Middle Ages, but it's not so much where they come from. It's more about what they describe.
So if they were working on a ranch or something like that, they would often use that family's surname.
Dr. Christoph Landry works for Ancestry.com. They're a genealogy company that uses historical records and DNA to trace your family roots. Dr. Landry says last names can come from 5 different categories: descriptive, occupational, patronymical, toponymical, and topographical. For example, if the person lived by a church, their last name was Church, translated in Spanish to Iglesia. Hence, Julio Iglesias, the world-famous singer, or for my era, Enrique Iglesias. But last names could also describe landscapes or geography, like Montes, which means mountains, Peña, which means rock, or Costa, which means coast. Toponymical last names refer to places such as cities or towns, like Valencia or Guzman, both towns in Spain.
There are also patronymic surnames, right? So names that come from the father's first name. So generally, the surnames that end in EZ.
So if your last name ends in EZ, it most likely is a patronymical last name, referring to the son of, for example, Martinez, son of Martin, Rodriguez, son of Rodrigo, and Gonzalez, son of Gonzalo. But that isn't always the case. What about Cortez? That would be a descriptive last name, deriving from the word courteous. Other descriptive last names include Delgado, which means thin, Bueno, which means good, or Rubio, which means blonde.
Thousands and thousands of years, people lived in North and South America that did not have Spanish last names.
Dr. Christian Roberto Walk with TAM-UCC says it wasn't until Spanish colonization that Latin American countries started to see the use of Spanish last names, including right here in South Texas.
For a small period of time, Texas would become its own republic, and in the 1840s would become part of the United States. And so that's why people, Mexicans in those areas, had Spanish last names that descend all the way back from that original Spanish colonial conquest.
For those with a last name like Guerra, Cantú, Herrera, or Romero, your last name describes an occupation. Cantú coming from the word canto, which means song, and could describe a singer. Guerra means war, describing a soldier. Or Herrera, originating from the word herrería, which means iron work, and could describe a blacksmith. So what about the different types of spelling? What might use an S instead of a Z? Dr. Landry says it all depends on who was spelling it.
We see them write the names as they heard them and as they knew how to spell them. So that could change within a single person's lifetime.
And for those who use double or hyphenated last names like Benitez Cortez, Landry says that tradition comes from Spain, and it wasn't until the 19th century that we start to see that pattern emerge. We couldn't fit all those last names into our story, so head on over to ChrisTV.com for a full list of those last names. For Hispanic Heritage Month, I'm Clara Benitez Cortez.